Hi, my name is Jeff and I'm a first-year medical student. I first want to say thank you to everybody who's given me support, comments, critiques about my last video, which was on the link between the tobacco industry and YouTube and stealth marketing. It's been a great learning experience for me, and I wanted to say thank you for your advice and your thoughts. I really learned a lot and I really appreciate it. One of the other questions that has come up has been about first-year medical school. What is it like? What's the curriculum like? And I thought, because for me it's nearing an end, I'll be done in about 2 weeks, I thought I would take this time to share a little bit about what we're learning in medical school. And also I would love to hear about what you're learning in medical school. So please send an email or video response or comment, and I would love to learn from you. I think everybody else who's watching these videos would love to hear about your stories as well. Alright, so in terms of curriculum, we started off with 6 weeks of biochemistry, 6 weeks of anatomy, 3 weeks of genetics, 4 weeks of clinical epidemiology / introduction to research, 6 weeks of physiology, 4 weeks of immunology, 5 weeks of microbiology, and now we're doing 2 weeks of pathology. So those were the morning classes. In terms of the afternoon classes, there's one class on patient-doctor communication and another class called social medicine / medical ethics. And we're required to take these classes, and I think in some other medical schools these aren't required classes, but in my medical school this is a required class. Patient-Doctor 1 is a communication skills class, and in this class they teach us ways to ask questions that make sense and are better for the patient and for the doctor. So for example, when a patient comes in, normally you start off by asking, what brings you to the hospital today? And the second question they teach us is to ask, tell me more, which is a really general open-ended question, but the teachers keep emphasizing that you have to ask, tell me more, and don't ask anything else. Don't ask narrow-ended questions like, does your hand hurt? Or does your sore throat hurt? Don't ask any narrow-ended questions, just ask, tell me more. Which sounds really simple, but apparently patients often tell you a lot after you ask, tell me more, and that can better shape the way you ask the questions later on in the interview. They really teach us to ask open-ended questions, to try to be patient and kind and compassionate. But sometimes when you walk in the hospital, inevitably you'll see a doctor who breaks every single rule we learn in patient-doctor communication. And so hopefully we'll carry everything we learn as we go. And but I think sometimes we're worried that we'll forget. I think that's one of the questions about, how many years do you actually take patient communication 1? How many years should you be taking medical ethics and social medicine classes? Which brings me to the next topic, which is social medicine and medical ethics. In medical ethics, what we talked about were issues such as stem cell transplantation, abortion, organ transplantation, and conflict of interest. Previously, this course was not required, but now everybody is required to take this class, which I think is really good, because it's really good to think about these issues ahead of time. Oftentimes our instructors were ethicists, and so we got to hear their perspective, which is very different from being in the hospital and being rushed and listening to doctor's perspective, which, a doctor's perspective and an ethicist's perspective, they're equally valuable, but in different settings, I think this was good to not have the kind of pressure in the hospital and to just, in the classroom, think about these issues before we went into the clinics in 3rd year. One of my favorite discussions was on conflict of interest, because as we enter into the hospitals and become doctors, it's only going to be more in our face. And as you know from the April 26th article in the New England Journal of Medicine, over 90% of doctors have some kind of relationship with the pharmaceutical industry, whether it's free food, free drug samples, financial incentives, trips to the Caribbean. And I just thought, as a random fact, I think you'd be happy to know that our first-year medical school class, most of my classmates, I get the impression we're going to try our best not to eat the free food, not to take the free pens, and to try to be as objective as possible. So we're going to try our hardest to not be jaded, and we'll see what happens. We got another dose of idealism in the class Social Medicine, which was taught by Drs. Paul Farmer, Jim Kim, and Alan Brandt. This class is called Social Medicine, and the idea comes from the fact that certain things in society really mess people's healthcare up or improve their healthcare. And what exactly are those things? Dr. Jim Kim likes to tell us that it takes 17 years for technology to get passed down and widely spread in the public. And this is in developed countries. It's even worse in the developing countries. And while you wait for these 17 years, a lot of people are dying, a lot of people need these medicines, need this healthcare, and they aren't getting them. And they teach us specifically what are these barriers, how to get over these barriers. Because the idea is, as doctors, we have as future doctors, we have responsibility not just in providing healthcare, but in thinking about how people are getting this healthcare or how people aren't getting this healthcare. And so we talk about domestic issues. There's this great program called PACT, P-A-C-T. Please Google it and check it out because I think it's a great program. But what they do is provide free HIV care. It's a community-based model in Roxbury. And if you're more interested in the details, I can email you and send them. And then there's also a lot of these programs, very famous one called Partners in Health, which I'm sure you may have heard of, where they go to Haiti and Lima and Rwanda and try to provide a community-based approach to healthcare and those kinds of issues. So that was a brief summary about what we're doing in first year medical school. There are also a lot of parties, society Olympics where people had relay races and dances, dance-off, dodgeball contests. I think for the most part first year it's similar to starting freshman year of college all over again, and it's a lot of fun. But I want to specifically talk about social medicine and medical ethics and patient-doctor communication. I thought I would bring these classes to your attention because I think it made me I really think it made a good impact on me and on everybody who's in first year medical school, because we'll learn the medicine eventually, but learning how to talk to people, learning how to recognize the social arrangements that are really messing people up, learning how to recognize the ethical quandaries that we face, not just learning how to recognize these things, but learning how to work with them and to try to make things better. I think this is equally as important as learning what a gram-negative bacteria is and things like that. So hopefully this was of some interest. Thank you.